Electro-Demon.
Look, it's 1K.
Hey 1K! Welcome to New Jerusalem!
Shouldn't the mayor be starting his speech?
This should be interesting.
At least give him a chance.
The Talos Principle 2 recently came out for the consoles and also the PC. The first game was very popular and had some great mechanics and a deep, thought-provoking story, but the sequel aims to be better in all aspects. Did it succeed? Well, stick with this review to find out.
The natural foundations on which their world had been built. Because of their arrogance, our species found itself on the brink of annihilation.
Before we'll delve further into the review, please consider subscribing to the channel if you like the content I'm making. The story of Talos Principle 2 is a difficult one to explain. It's a very deep philosophical story. Basically, in a nutshell, humans don't exist anymore, but sentient AI, human-like creatures do. You play as 1K, a 1000 sentient robot in the city called New Jerusalem. And an apparition appears, let's call it that, and you're suddenly on a quest to explore a new mysterious land. What you will find there will ultimately change and also shatter your perspective on life. Well, not just your perspective, but also everyone in New Jerusalem. That's as brief as possible without treading into spoiler territory too much. The first game was, I'd say, questioning existence, and Talos Principle 2 is about civilization, stagnation, progress, that sort of thing. It's a very interesting story. The game also has a few possible endings, so keep that in mind. The voice acting is great and the animation is really good. Croteams, the developer of this game, has never been good at lip syncing and the animation work. It's a good thing that all characters here are AI robots, so it helps mask that. This is a hardcore puzzle game. There's no combat of any sorts, just pure puzzles. I loved the first game. The first game had fewer mechanics, so they had to get creative with the puzzles. In Talos Principle 2, the puzzles are much more varied and have a lot more mechanics. The basic puzzle contains a connector. You use a connector to power a door from a power source. There's a new thing called the RGB connector. You give that connector two different colors from a power source and it outputs a third color. Example, you give it red and blue and you get green and vice versa. It's a great innovation on the basic connector. Then there's the classic jammer, a device that jams sealed doors. There's also a box that you use to climb stuff or put on a floor switch. There's also a lot of fans who can lift stuff into the air, etc. I like the digger. It's a device that can punch a hole in certain walls. You can then use that hole to pass stuff through it or power beams. Cool mechanic. There's also the teleporter. You can instantly teleport to a different location with it. It's a great mechanic and it's not that tedious as the recorder from the first game. I fucking hated that record puzzles in the first game. Luckily, this one doesn't have that. Then there's the accumulator. Basically, it's a connector and this connector can accumulate beams. There's a few more mechanics, but you get the pictures. The puzzles are great, they ease you in and they're not too hard. There's 12 distinct locations in the main story. Each location contains 8 main puzzles you have to finish. There's also the lost puzzles, which are optional, and gold puzzles, also optional. Each location has a new mechanic and that really helps keep things fresh. It becomes a bit more challenging towards the end of the game where you have a lot of mechanics and gadgets and each new area introduces a new mechanic. But the puzzles are really good. Very good design and they'll make you think outside of the box. I think Talos Principle 2 is a bit easier than the first game. And when you get on a new island, the first few puzzles will always be easier to properly teach you this new mechanic the game has introduced. When you finish all 8 story puzzles on an island, you'll have to complete a tetromino bridge, basically a bridge made out of Legos. And you'll have sections outside of those 12 islands/areas in where you have to finish puzzles as well. If you're stuck, there's always the Prometheus Spark. 2 Prometheus Sparks per area that let you bypass the puzzle. But these sparks are hard to find. Some are really hidden in devious places. Every puzzle game is not just about puzzles. It's a core thing, sure, but it needs to have more. Talos Principle has awesome and really well designed puzzles, but also its story is really good too. And I think that helps it a lot. I was stuck on a puzzle for 2 hours only to come back in the morning and solve it in like 30 seconds. A lot of aha moments. I love that. And every good puzzle game needs that. Talos Principle has that. The music accompanying this game is good. A lot of orchestral stuff, but I think it fits the game nicely. Croteams didn't use their Serious engine like they always had. If you didn't know, Croteams is the studio behind Serious Sam games. They've opted to use Unreal Engine 5. I think this is a step in the right direction because Serious Sam 4 was a buggy mess of a game, and the updated Serious engine is not really cutting it for modern gaming audiences. They're using the Unreal Engine 5 and everything ran smooth. I played on the PlayStation 5 and it looked solid. I think they didn't use some of the core features of the Unreal Engine like Lumen, but it still looks great. And the game is very pretty artistically. UE5 is just a great fit for Talos Principle. It gives the game stability. I haven't encountered a single game-breaking bug on my playthrough. Talos Principle 2 is a great puzzle game with some deep philosophical story accompanying it. It's almost a perfect sequel. If you do just main puzzles, the game will last you around 20-25 hours. But there are optional puzzles as well, and with those you're looking at close to 30 hours. If I had to give a score to this game, I'd give it 9.1 out of 10.
I think it's safe to assume that Olympus is the entity's term for the megastructure. It looks like our best chance of rescuing Byron is finding Prometheus and freeing him.
How do you free a weird, glowing ghost thing?
I suspect these entities exist within the megastructure systems.